All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to today's session. My name is Chris Stiers. I am a recruiter for about 20 years now. I've worked in staffing recruiting, worked my way into corporate recruiting, and then technology for the last 12 to 13 years. I've worked at companies like Rackspace, Indeed, Meta, and a bunch of startups since then. So I've kind of seen a little bit of everything from a lot of different angles, from a lot of different places. So I'll be your host this afternoon. So for a few housekeeping rules here, let's try to keep everybody on mute. So this way we don't have anything distraction happening. I'm not sure how much control I'll have on this end, but if you do have any questions, I will be doing a Q&A towards the end of this. I do have a couple of things I want to talk about this afternoon, and then we could do some Q&A afterwards. If you do have any questions, please feel free to add them to the chat. I'll do my best to try to reach some of those, towards the end of this. And then at the last 5-10 minutes, we're going to show you this amazing product that I've had a chance to kind of work with, and I look forward to seeing what you guys think as well. So, all right. So today's session is being that shining star in a black hole. I'm not sure if a lot of you have heard of the analogy of, your resume falls in a black hole and you never hear anything back. Well, we're going to talk about why that actually happens, what's actually going on in the market. We're going to talk about, some resume techniques and ways to actually kind of help your resume stand out. Same thing with your LinkedIn profile. And then finally, how to get noticed, how to actually be that shining star in that black hole, how to actually get noticed when there are so many people out there that are looking for work at the same time. So with that being said, let's go ahead and kick this thing off. And as we go through this, of course, if you have any questions, please add those to the chat there, and I'll do my best to try to get to most of them at the end of the session today. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the job markets right now. Now, again, so I've been doing this for a long time, and there are so many different variations of what's happening in the job market. You have everything from a dynamic. So this happens when there's a lot of jobs that are out there. There's a lot of activity. There's probably more jobs than there are that we are finding folks. The best example of when you might have seen something like this was when COVID had opened back up. In the recruiting world, this is what we call the Great Resignation, because at that point in time, everybody, were holding on to their jobs because nobody was doing anything. Everything was on hold, and once the job market opened back up, we had a bunch of net new positions we had to hire, and so everybody was like, "Well, this is a good time for me to make a change," and so everybody left their positions. We had a bunch of net new, absolute craziest hiring I've seen in a very, very, very long time. This is what we call a dynamic job market. This is the best time to, if you're going to try to switch domains, if you're trying to switch job profiles, maybe you've been a software engineer and you want to move in to be a TPM, or maybe you're TPM trying to get a software engineering. These are these in a dynamic job market, these are the best times to try new things. Companies will take a lot more chances on profiles with a little bit of experience, and then we will teach you the rest of that. Right. That's when things are really, really good. Or, but again, we don't see that too often. Now, the balanced job market is what we've seen everything prior to COVID. For the longest time, we had a decent balanced market. It was still a little lopsided on the sluggish side, but it was fairly balanced for the most part. That means there was a good amount of actual jobs that are out there with job seekers at the same time. It's not as intense as it was post-COVID, but it was a good balance between this. This is for times where you're able to go through like boot camps, and you're able to take extra classes and get that extra experience in order to move into something new. It didn't take much to make that happen. You were able to get a little more opportunity. You saw, promotions happening. You saw companies growing. It's more of a steady growth. Right. So this is what we would call like a balanced job market. And that is what was happening prior to COVID. Now let's talk about what's happening now. So some of this information is going to be tough to hear, and honestly, it's going to be a little bit discouraging. But I'm going to help you out through this. I'm going to help you give you some tips and tricks to help you kind of be seen. But it's best to understand what's actually happening, so this way you're setting yourself up for success. Okay. So right now we're in what we call a sluggish job market. A couple of things you have to think about. How did we get here? Okay, so we had, COVID that happened. This is going to be basic economics right here, supply and demand, how inflation happened. We don't have to go into those specific details, but the market kind of flipped upside down. We started seeing this right about October of 2022 is when some of this the big layoffs started happening. I'm going to use Meta as an example at this point in time. So something you have to think about when it comes to some of these. These larger organizations, honestly, any company out there, especially software companies, the number one expenditure for a software company is going to be headcount. I mean, think about this. If we hired 10 software engineers, you're looking at $1.5 million just in compensation for a year, if not more, or it might be less. It's kind of average right around there. That is a lot of money, especially if you're a smaller company, but still, that's a lot of burn that you're adding to your actual books itself. And so when a sluggish job market's happening, they don't want to spend money, right? And so let's take Meta for an example. So right about time, I would say it was right around July, August, sometime around there, everybody kind of went on a hiring freeze. This is when we started seeing, the stock market price going down, but they're still spending up here. So usually when you go on a hiring freeze, you'll still have your natural attrition. It actually speeds up a little bit because I'm like, oh my gosh, my company's on a hiring freeze. Are they doing good? People will usually bail before they get to like layoffs and things like that. So that will actually happen from there. So then we'll actually see what's we have our so we have the actual the hiring freeze that'll happen. So people started leaving from there, but you know what? It's still not hitting that. Well, right around I'd say it's about October 2022, Meta was trading about $90 a share. Now, prior to COVID, when I was still there, we were trading about 300 and averaging around 300 to 400, right in between there. Well, they got down to $90 a share. That is bad. At that point in time, that's when we started seeing those big layoffs started happening. Is it wasn't just Meta, it was everybody. They weren't investing into new technology. At that point in time, it's like, okay, we have to take care of ourselves. And so we started seeing the hiring freezes happening. Then all the layoffs started happening. I mean, everybody was laying off. I think Meta had laid off somewhere close like was it close to like 30,000 people, if not more, sometime around there. I mean, Google, everybody's been impacted by these layoffs. And you have to keep in mind, as folks are graduating and getting into the job market, everybody who was currently in the job market got dropped out of it. And so you're starting to see a lot of competition when it comes to getting into some of these jobs. And so you're going to have to be diligent. You're going to have to put in a lot more effort, and you're going to have to do a lot of different things to make sure that you stand out because there are so many people that are out there. So some of the things I want to show you today that's really going to help you kind of stand out, right? At the end of the day, I want to make sure that you've been seen. Okay. And so what we started to see right now is, and everybody asked me all those times, like, well, what do we think about the jobs are going to come back? And to tell you the truth, we don't know. There are so many things that's affecting the job market right now, whether it's politics, whether it's the conflicts that are happening around the globe. You have to keep in mind that the U.S., we just can't help ourselves. We've got to get involved in everything. So when we're sending a lot of money overseas, we're not investing in our own economy, and it's making companies feel a little bit more nervous. We were hoping things would change around in 2024 with it being an election year. We typically see things bounce back saying, hey, yeah, vote for me. Look what I did. Well, we're not exactly seeing that happen this time. It could be because of the political drama, or it could be the conflicts that are happening. There's so many different variables that are playing into this. It's hard to predict any of it. I think companies are waiting to see what's going to happen in November before they start feeling comfortable. Hey, this is what the next 4 years are going to look like. I might feel more comfortable if things picking back up. So I'm really, really hoping for a big 2025 bounce back. But then again, we just don't know. So at this point in time, the best we could do is prepare for what's actually happening right now. You want to prepare for the worst and expect the best, right? And so we're going to work on working through some of that stuff. And so, like I said, hopefully some of this stuff's going to bounce back. But I told you it is doom and gloom, but we're here to help through this. This is something my grandfather used to tell me, is when effort and opportunity collide, create success. So even though that you feel like you're in this, you're in this horrible job market, and you're still trying to get a job and you keep getting rejection, or you're not hearing back at all, and you're applying to like 200 positions and you're just not hearing anything back, or you're getting those rejections, you have to keep in mind, you've got to keep persevering through this stuff. So one of the things I'm going to teach you is how to actually get out of that black hole piece of that too, because it is frustrating. And I've been there myself. If you think the job market's bad for like a software engineer, try being a recruiter. My goodness, like I said, all the layoffs that are happening, if they're not hiring, they don't need us. So we've seen some pretty rough things in there, and some of the tricks I'm going to teach you are some of the ones I did myself to help me get ahead in this job market as well. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about building a resume. One of the biggest thing you have to understand about a resume, it's just marketing. Okay. Your resume and your LinkedIn is marketing material, right? If any of y'all have taken a marketing class before in any of the other high school, college, of any time, one of the big things you need to understand about marketing, it's all about who your audience is. You have to target the right audience. This means either industry and job profile. You really want to pay attention to what industry that you're going into. You want to make sure that you're targeting your resume through that. I am aware that most of you folks are actually fresh college grads that are coming out of here. You won't have to worry too much about industry specific unless you have prior years of experience. This will still come into play. You want to make sure that you're highlighting some of those industry specific experiences. So for an example, if someone's working at Bank of America, and you want to make sure that you're building your resume. You're trying to get into like a software company. You want to build your resume for a software company, not a bank. So this means you're wanting to use relevant experience. The more you keep talking about how you did things in the banking world, the less that a software company is going to understand what you're talking about, number one. But also, it's not as relevant as somebody else, right? I'm going to pick somebody else up from another software company that I can identify that relevant experience much easier, right? And so we want to make sure that you're actually targeting that audience. This also means using relevant job titles. I don't know, and again, this is and maybe not an example specifically for you guys, but let me tell you, I don't know what it is about the banking industry, but they hand out VP titles like you're at an Oprah show. Everybody's a VP. A VP in the software world is a manager of a manager of managers. Well, sometimes in banks, even somebody who is who's only been doing, who's been, as an IC, but more like technical lead, they call those VPs. Well, that's not what we see that. So you have to make sure you're using generic job titles that we're go out and search. If I'm looking for a software engineer, you need to call yourself a software engineer, even if you have to hyphen it, right? Maybe you're called something else and you want to put in parentheses what the actual industry would call it. When I was at Rackspace, we used random job titles, like it was called a fanatical engineer. What does that even mean in this market? It means nothing, right? You're a software engineer, right? Make sure that you're using generic job titles, you're using relevant experience. The next one to talk about is the job profile. A lot of times people do bounce around from different issues, from like maybe a product manager to a TPM to a software engineer. You want to make sure that you're building a resume for a specific job profile. You need to have a resume for every single one of those. For example, I have 4 resumes. I have 2 for corporate recruiting and 2 for technical recruiting, one for an IC and one for a manager for each one of those. Each one is targeting a specific audience. So you want to make sure that when you're building out your resume, that you're building it for that specific job profile. It's not Your resume is not meant to put everything on there that you've ever done. No, because we only spend on average about 3 to 15 seconds on a resume, right? You don't want to spend a lot of time. You want to make sure that you're using the white page enough as much as you got in order to catch our attention. And we're going through these things quick. We get thousands of resumes a day, and there's so many to it. And I'm not going to see them all, but I'm going to try to go through them as quickly as I possibly can. But help us help you. Like, help me find the information that I need. And so this means you've got to read job descriptions. And I cannot stress that enough. Job descriptions, job descriptions, job descriptions. I know they're a bit of a groaner to read. I write them and I hate job descriptions, but let me tell you, that's going to give you the most information you possibly can to know, hey, is this the right job for me? And you even have to read between the lines sometimes. Not everything's going to be listed at the minimum qualifications. So let's say, for an example, this is going to be so it's a software engineering job that's going to be on a generative AI project that you're working on. Well, it may not require generative AI experience, as far as like the minimum requirements. However, because this is going to be within that, we're going to want to see that. or if it's going to be on a video software that you'll be working on. If you have any video experience whatsoever, working on a video product, those are the things that we're going to be looking for. So it's important to make sure that you read that stuff and make sure that's on your resume. You don't have to tailor it to every single time you do this. It's great if you did, but that's a lot of work for every single time. So make sure you read a job description. If you're missing something, just add it to it and then move on. Keep adding until you keep going to it. But you want to kind of keep some distance links on there. So keep this in mind. The same thing goes with your LinkedIn profile. Now, that one's going to be a little bit different. Whereas you could have 4 or 5 different resumes targeting different job profiles, your LinkedIn, you only get one. So you really want to consider, what job are you really trying to target? Who are you really trying to market to? Right. And that's what you want your profile to represent. But you can also add things in there to kind of expand it out a little bit, especially for keyword searches and things of that sort. So if I do happen to come across your LinkedIn profile for a job that might be a second one you're thinking of, your information is still going to be there. But you're going to have to find a little bit of a balance in there. I wouldn't try to add 3 different job profiles to a single LinkedIn profile, because that's going to be chaos. Find some balance in there. You got to find out what exactly it is that you're trying to target. Okay. And I'll show you some tricks on the LinkedIn profile and kind of how to get noticed in that here in just a second. But let's get through the resume piece of this. Now, let's talk about some of the do's and don'ts when it comes to building your resumes. Obviously, like I mentioned, tailoring your resume, right? You want to make sure that you put the right keywords in there, because that's what we're looking for. If I'm typing a Boolean search, I want to make sure that's on there. And it could be something simple, right? I was hiring a position for a cloud security engineer one time, and even it was a cloud security engineer dash Kubernetes. It was in the job title, right? And so, believe it or not, this is when I was at Indeed for a cloud security engineer. I'd probably say about a tenth of the resumes that I got were security guards, because people didn't read job descriptions. And so what I would do is I would actually just use a keyword search for Kubernetes. If you did not have Kubernetes in your resume, automatically declined, because that's a must-have for this job. You might have had that experience, but you forgot to put it on your resume, and that's why you were rejected. So pay attention to those things. So you want to tailor your resume for the job and make sure that you can speak intelligently, whatever you put on your resume. You want to use like action verbs too, like bullet points. You don't want to use like I did this or I did that. You want to make sure you talk about, it's like this is um, worked on a project, with 15 people with this kind of stuff on there. And the same thing goes when it comes to working on projects and highlights of stuff you do. I've got an example resume here to really highlight some of that, for especially for some of you folks in internships or just graduating. It can really highlight some of that experience. But you want to use like action words versus like I did this, because if your every bullet point was I did or this is, it just kind of gets wonky after a little bit. If you can quantify some of your achievements, use percentages versus dollar amounts, because dollar amounts are subjective. So if you worked on a $5 million project at Bank of America, well, that's a penny in the bucket compared to a $5 million project at a startup, right? So use percentages. It gives us a better understanding of kind of what you're looking at there. Highlight relevant experience, right? So the resume I'm going to show you has a specific section to highlight your relevant experience. Right? It's got a couple different bullet points. So this way, even if you don't have any working experience or any of this is where your projects will go. Anything that you could talk about of how you've actually done some of this stuff is really what's going to help make this resume pop a little bit. It's going to be using those keyword searches I'm talking about as well. And down to exactly what I'm talking about, working through keywords, right? A lot of different resumes. We have a lot of applicant tracking systems that will actually will compare your resume to the job description to see how well they match up. We're going to show you a product later today that's actually does that for you when you apply. It's super awesome stuff. So utilizing those keyword searches on it. So it's important to make sure you read the job description, utilize some of those keywords. Now let's talk about the things you don't want to do. All right, generic resume. Again, I've seen these forever where there's just, you put all of your experience on the resume and you're like, call it a day. No. Or again, 3 to 15 seconds and you're now marketing yourself, right? Market yourself. Keep an eye on excessive length. I kid you not, I will automatically decline a resume that's 19 pages long. I don't want to see that. I'm not going to read it ever, right? 2 pages max. Actually, you can probably even do 3 pages max, honestly. Like my resume is about 3 pages, but it's got a lot of additional experience in there. But for folks who have like publications or you have like additional material on there, those are always good too. So good point to your research about using bolding some of those numbers. This is going to be an opinion thing when it comes to bolding stuff on resumes. I'm not a big fan of it because people don't know how to do it. If you've ever seen someone use a highlighter for the first time, they highlight the whole damn thing. It doesn't work. So you have to be really good at it. Again, it's a hit or miss for me. Usually, folks will bold the wrong thing, and the amount of work you're going to put into a preferred job description may not work out, but it's not going to hurt you, you know. So also talk about irrelevant information, right? So, if you have zero working experience and the only working experience you have is at Starbucks, that's okay to have in there because it's showing you've actually had a job, right? You've actually been in that structured environment. That's okay to have on there. But if you've got maybe 2 or 3 years of already experience under that, you only want to highlight the experience that's relevant. So again, we're going to use Bank of America for an example. If you're talking about working on a specific okay, this is a good example. I had someone I was talking to. They were working on the chips on the card. They were using a bunch of acronyms that I had no idea what any of that meant. They're telling me these stories about it. And I'm like, I've got no idea what you're talking about, right? So use relevant experience, translate that to almost where a software company could understand that. So avoid any industry specific jargon and things like that. So make sure that you're highlighting that relevant experience. Try using a professional email. And this is absolutely no joke. This was probably about 12 years ago. I had I had somebody on their resume, their email address was smoke42085. And I still burned in my head today. And I told the guy, I'm like, listen, buddy, you might want to change your email address when applying for a job. For some of those out there who are getting a lot of job applicants, it might be a good idea to create an email account specifically for your job hunt. So this way you don't lose, a possible interview or someone contacting you out because it's lost in the spam emails that you get, or because you get a ton of emails a day, right? So everybody has that one email account that you've kind of had for too long. Yeah, that's Yahoo. I don't even go into that one anymore, right? So you might want to think about creating a new email address so this way you have something that's professional. Stay away from like overused phases, right? This is a lot of things that's it's funny is like excellent verbal and written communication. I'm like, that's not tangible items. Like, that's not what I want to see on a resume. You know, prove it to me. Your written communication is your resume itself. The attention to detail, how you've actually worded things. That's me showing that's you showing me that you have written skills. Your verbal communication is going to happen in the interview. You don't need to put that stuff on a resume. So avoid some of those things now. Now, there's a ton of different things that we can go for these, but these are just some of the ones that are top of my mind as we go through this. So here's a bit of a resume template for you. And I'm going to share you a link in the chat. Everybody could actually borrow this resume template. This is on a Google Sheet. So what you're going to do is you're going to click, I'm going to send a link here in the chat. So you're just going to click the link. You're going to go to File, make a copy, and that copy is yours. You can do whatever you want to it. But this is an example of kind of what I'm talking about, right? Again, something very simple. Name, make sure your phone number, email address, LinkedIn profile. If you have a GitHub profile, add it to it if you use it. I don't want to see a GitHub profile on there if you haven't touched it in 10 years. That's not going to be any good. Then using target headlines up here. Software engineer. You don't have to use all three, but these are target headlines for job titles you've done. You might have seen this in LinkedIn before, right? The actual banner that you have up there, that's kind of what this is, right? So, add job titles that you're targeting on that. For myself, it was, head of talent acquisitions, recruiting manager, technical recruiter, right? Three different kind of job titles that encapsulates the experience that I have. So if someone's looking at my resume, they're able to see some of that. The summary, keep the summary short, sweet, and simple, right? If you have any experience, use actual numbers. Like I recently college graduate from Carnegie Mellon with 3 years, use the number 3 years experience working as a software engineer, right? Actually putting a number there, numbers pop out on a resume for us. It's, again, we're 3 to 15 seconds and we're perusing through this. If I could see like you've got your 3 years of experience and the minimum qualifications asking for 2, check mark. I'm already good. I'm going to go look at your skills section now. Now, their skill section piece of this, their skill section piece here is going to highlight all of those key things. What coding languages you have, what frameworks have you worked with? This is where you list all of your technical skills, all of your technical attributes you have there. These are the keywords that I'm going to be looking for to make sure we have it on that. So be careful with actually spelling and spacing, because if you like miss a space somewhere, our Boolean search won't pick it up. So be very careful when it comes to writing some of that stuff out. Now, for the folks that are actually recent college grads, you can either have your education first. I prefer having, your highlights or your projects. This is where you're going to emphasize your actual experience, whether it's through internships you've done or school projects you've worked on. This is where you're going to highlight those things that you see on a job description, saying this is what they're looking for. Tell me where that you've done that. And that being right there on the very first thing, because sometimes you may not have that in your actual experience itself. This is coming from projects. So if I go look at your work experience, it's not going to show that because you haven't done it in an actual job, but you've done it in project work. You've done it with side projects you've done. This is the place to highlight that. And especially if you're a new college grad, like I said, education could be right there next, or you can put it before that, especially if you're a new grad. I want to highlight that information. Now, if you're not a new grad and you've already got maybe 5 years experience already kind of under your belt, just put it there at the bottom. When it comes to education, it's just a check mark box for us. We're going to go, if it's a requirement for the job, I know exactly where to find it. So for a new grad, up top, because that's where a lot of your experience is going to be coming from. If not, put it down there at the bottom. Doesn't mean it's not anything less. I just know where to find it. It's going to be easier, right? Again, 3 to 15 seconds. I want to be able to identify that information quick. Now let's talk about adding the experience piece of this, right? This is very basic. Company name, year and date that you worked there, your job title, year. Now, you don't have to put the year and date here. This is an example if you had like 2 different jobs within the same company. So let's say you were a software engineer and then a senior software engineer, right? So software engineer right here, right? The dates and months you were in that role, and then senior software engineer. It shows career progression within that role. That's why I like highlighting that. So let me share this with everybody here. Chat, there we go. All right, and y'all can go on there and just go to file, make a copy, and y'all have a copy of this right here. You said put the location. You don't have to put the location on your resume. You can put an address in here if you want to, but I wouldn't put, sometimes you can put the location underneath this, on the side of this if you like. You really don't have to have location on there. Especially, I would not add location to the companies, right? So for an example, if you have been working in India for the last 3 years, right? Don't put that on your resume. There are a lot of folks out there that might have some unconscious biases around, because experience working in India versus the U.S., right? So you want to make sure that you're not kind of falling down that path there. So it doesn't matter. I wouldn't put it on there. No harm there. I mean, you have the experience. That's what matters, and that's what I want to show out of your resume. So y'all will really take a look at that there. Okay, let's talk a little bit about LinkedIn optimization. Okay, so we've already talked about the resume and how to kind of map that out. Now let's talk a little bit about LinkedIn. Now I could talk about this stuff for hours, but we've got a limited time here. So I'm just kind of going over some of this high level stuff. So when it comes to LinkedIn profile, essentially it's an extension of your resume. So all you got to do is just copy and paste the information you have in there and put it on there. In the summary section, let me go back one. On the summary section, you're almost literally going to copy all of your little summary statement here and your skills. And you can even do your highlights and projects. You could put all of that in the About You section, right? Again, more keywords, more things that we're going to find there, right? So you want to make sure that you fill that out properly. Let me go back, sorry. Next thing is use a professional photo, right? To make sure it's a nice, good, clear headshot. Make sure it's looking good. Your headlines, same thing for Arnie. Well, so with your headlines on there, add a headline, full stack developer, right? Add a headline on there. Again, it helps us identify who you are. If you're going to be more front-end focused, front-end software engineer, front-end developer, right? Those actual titles will help us identify your profile as well. Again, you want to have a good, well-crafted summary. Same thing, just like on your resume. Now, networking on LinkedIn. LinkedIn was literally built so this way you can network with like-minded professionals, is to connect with other professionals. If you've ever heard the term, it's all about who you know. Well, what are you doing to get to know people? LinkedIn is built for that. LinkedIn is for that. It's to connect with people. You need to utilize this. This, especially in tech, this is going to be your biggest and best tool when it comes to networking, right? You need to network out there. And this is going to be the way to do it. So you cannot avoid LinkedIn. As if you're going to be in technology, this is a must. No doubt about it. This is a must. You got to have it. This helps us find you. It also helps us validify your profile. I'm actually a little nervous if I have a software engineer who's applied to a job and they don't have a LinkedIn profile. It makes me a little nervous. I kid you not, we're having a lot of issues with imposters applying to jobs with fake resumes. It's happening a lot. One of the things I would recommend doing is getting verified on LinkedIn. So when you click on your profile, it actually says that you're verified. I would highly recommend doing that because I would say about a year from now, that's almost going to be a must due to how many imposters that we do have. So make sure that you're connecting with people. Make sure you have meaningful connections. Connect to groups. Any company that you're applying to or interested in, make sure you follow that company. There are things that we could see on LinkedIn that'll help you show that. And matter of fact, let me just show you real quick. And I'm going to show you what it's like on the LinkedIn side here. Oh, sorry. Hold on one second. That's let me in. All right. I always like showing some folks this. This is what it looks like on the LinkedIn recruiter side here, right? So let's just take this one for an example, just really for a research analyst on this, right? So when I'm looking for folks, I have a couple of different options. I could look for folks who are open to work, people who are active talent. These are folks who have been maybe recently laid off. This is kind of what LinkedIn says these folks might be interested. If there are people that are interested in your company. So if you follow the company, this is where this is going to fall into line with. By using generic job titles, this helps me find your profile too. Keywords, all of this stuff helps us help me find you. So this is why it's important to make sure that you spend some time to do this the right way. Now let's talk about networking a little bit, right? So when you are actually building out your LinkedIn profile, again, add your taglines there, make sure you fill this information out. And so when you were doing the open to, oh, I didn't realize I had this on. I guess I'll do an example later. When you're actually doing this now, there's two different options. Now, again, some people are a little nervous about doing the open to work on your LinkedIn profile. Well, you have a couple of options here. First of all, one thing is very important. Make sure you fill this stuff out. You actually put actual lines of stuff that you're looking for, and make sure you fill this stuff out. Now, this is the part that I want to talk a little bit about. So if you use this button right here, this means everybody on LinkedIn can see that you're looking for work. If you're not currently working and you don't care if people know that you're looking for work, use this. For folks who do not have LinkedIn Recruiter, they will be able to find you and say, oh, this person's looking for work. I'm going to reach out to them. If you want to be a little more incognito, then you want to use this one right here. This is only for anybody who has a LinkedIn Recruiter license, which are not cheap, by the way. Not everybody has one of these. So if we have a LinkedIn Recruiter license, we could see that you're open to work. Now, there is a disclaimer on here that says, although we take steps to show recruiters your current company, we can't guarantee complete privacy. This is because if, let's say, for an example, somebody, if you have a staffing firm that's working for them, they're not in that current company, they're going to be able to see that you're looking for work. For example, my wife is a tech recruiter. I could jump on her LinkedIn recruiter and see if anybody in my current company is looking for work. We could do those things, but honestly, as far as recruiters go, we don't care. That's job security because we get to backfill your job. So don't be afraid to use this. Just be careful commenting when someone has a post. I'm like, it's like, hey, I'm hiring this position, and you comment on that saying, yes, I'm very much interested. Well, people can see that. I've had a few times where that's kind of bitten some folks in the rear end, right? So you want to make sure that you do that. Let me delete that, right? And then the about you section, like I said, you could keep this as long as you need to, but make sure that you fill this stuff out. When it comes to filling these things out, take the time, fill it out. So just essentially copy and paste it from your resume there. All right, let's go back to this. Okay, so again, make sure that if you're going to, be active on there, share content, engage in other people's profiles. These are the things that's going to help you get noticed, especially if you're active out there. Okay, now let's talk about getting noticed. All right, we talked about the resume. As if you're doing a good job on your resume, then you will be good there. Now, keep in mind, Again, there are so many people looking for work right now, right? So you want to be one of the first people to look for a job. So let's say, for example, we're looking for a software engineer, or you look for a software engineering position, right? So when you pull this stuff up, you actually want to be one of the first folks to apply. So first thing every day, just check out what jobs have been posted out there. You can change the levels. There's all kinds of stuff that you could do in here, but you want to be the first person to apply, right? But essentially what we're going to try to do is we want to get seen. So if you're getting to a point where, you're applying to a bunch of companies, but you're not hearing back, well, your resume is not the problem. You're just not getting seen. Now, if you're getting rejected, then okay, there's a disconnect between what your resume says and what you're applying to. You need to pull them both and look at them side by side and see where you missed, right? Think of it like A/B testing. A bunch of y'all in the engineering, y'all should know what A/B testing is. Think of it like that. If you're getting rejected, make sure that you're doing your research, make sure that you're actually on the same page, and hopefully you can identify what it is. I do a lot of one-on-one sessions with some folks, and 90% of the time they're like, I need a resume review. And I'm like, well, are you getting seen or are you getting responses? Like, no, I'm not getting responses. Like, well, you don't need a resume review. You need to get seen. Right. And so it's first come, first serve. You need to be one of the first people to apply. So it's important to make sure that you create job alerts, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on Jobright, whether it's on go to the company website, go to Microsoft and actually create a candidate profile, create a keyword search. So when they open a job, you get a notification so you can apply to that thing as soon as possible. You got to be the first one there. The next what's going to happen is like you have to get a referral. Right now, referrals are the key. Referrals, referrals, referrals. This right here will get you to the front of the line. So the way it works on the recruiting side, we have a thing called an applicant tracking system, an ATS. Now, this ATS, we have what we call an application funnel. It doesn't matter where you apply to the job. It could be from Indeed, it could be from Jobright, it could be from LinkedIn, it could be anywhere from the company website. Everybody goes to the exact same place. Everybody. All right. And what happens is sometimes we'll do a keyword search. Sometimes we'll use the percentage AI thing in there. I'm not a big fan of it, but hey, you know what? Some recruiters do like it out there. I like to be able to see the resumes myself because I get a bunch of different answers. I trust my eyes more anyway. So, but then some people will sort through that. Most of the time, it's first come, first serve, right? The first one in is the first ones I'm going to start viewing. So the thing is, if the job's been open for maybe a week to 2 weeks, there's going to be a ton of applications already in there. And so you may not get seen. Like you might be sitting there for months and months and months, and then you finally get a rejection. Well, what if I could tell you could skip to the very front of the line? So we have an application funnel. There's a completely separate funnel for referrals. Most companies have SLAs for recruiters on when we have to respond back to referrals. Some are maybe more loose about that, but majority do. Large companies, they have an entire departments dedicated specifically to referrals, and everybody gets reviewed. Now, this right here is just to get you seen. It doesn't guarantee you an interview, doesn't guarantee you a job. Even if it's a friend of yours that's worked with you in the past and could speak, amazing things about your experience, it doesn't always guarantee you an interview. This just helps you get seen. There's a couple ways to do this. You can go to sites like teamblind.com, which is a great one. Team Blind is I would talk about this one like Glassdoor meets Reddit. It's completely anonymous for the most part, but you could solicit referrals this way. Some of them will actually say, "It's like, hey, if you're looking for a referral, hit me up. Hiring a creators, I'll DM him for a referral." 845 replies. I had a friend of mine that worked at Meta. He was an engineer there. He made more money off of referral bonuses than he did his base salary. Because you have to think about this. Referrals, they get paid. I've seen referral bonuses between $500 to $20,000. And if you think I'm kidding, check out Accenture Hot Jobs, 20K a pop. I could actually fill that externally and get paid for that. Very difficult to do, but there are some very expensive referrals out there, right? And so people will actually do that for you. So you could actually go out here. This person's looking for a referral there. This is a good place to actually kind of source for some of that. Or you could take a little bit more direct approach for this, right? So it's important to understand kind of like the recruiting cycle. So let's say, for an example, I opened up a job position like on a Friday, and on Monday I have 500 applications to go through that. right? So I'm going to start reviewing those resumes. So I get through like the first 100 resumes, right? Out of that 100, I found 10 that I like, and I reject the other 90. Well, I still have 400 waiting there, but at 10, that's a good number for me. So I'm going to reach out to those 10. I'm going to do a recruiter phone screen. This is the recruiting workflow. From there, I'll do that recruiting. I'll do those screens right there. And let's say maybe I like 7 of those. They move on to the technical interview, the hiring manager interview. And out of those 7, they like 3 of them. Okay. Well, at this point in time, 3 folks going to the final panel interview for one open position I have. All right, I feel pretty good about this. Well, this has taken probably about 2 to 3 weeks. I haven't even touched any of the other applications because as this is going through its funnel, I put it off to the side while it's doing its thing, and I do another job, and I keep doing this, and I'm juggling a lot of positions, usually on average between 7 to 20. Currently, I've got 20 open recs right now by myself. I'm flooded. It's insanity, but that's how the recruiting workflows go. Now, there are times where you will actually have like a position we're going to keep hiring from. This happens a lot, like at Meta, for an example. We have an unlimited number of hiring we're going to do, and we're just going to keep on going through that. So it's a little bit different there. But even then, we're sharing, the actual requisition, the applications, and we're just kind of getting flooded with a bunch of these things. So when it comes to the referral, you actually get caught right here. So if you're referred into the position, now I'm talking about referred in through the applicant tracking system saying, hey, I need you they send the resume through the ATS saying this is a referral. Sending a resume over to your friends like, hey, could you send this to the hiring manager? Could you send this to the recruiter? That's not going to do it. No one's held accountable. You're going to fall through the cracks faster than anything else. Right. So you want to make sure that it's submitted through this. Now, the trick that I'm going to show you, this is what I did when I got laid off from Indeed last March or March from whenever it happened. So keep in mind, the recruiting industry, we got eviscerated. Nobody was hiring. Everybody was laid off. It was an absolute disaster. When I got laid off on a Wednesday, my last day was the following Friday, so about a week and a half. When I started looking at jobs, a position would be open up for like 5 hours. There's already like 700 applicants. In a week, there's like 17,000. There were so many positions. There was no way I was going to get seen. So I stopped applying and I started working my referral method. Okay. I'm going to show you how to do this. So let's say, for an example, we're interested in applying to Microsoft, right? We're interested in this job right here. So first thing we want to do is we want to connect with people. We want to start working those referrals. We want to make genuine human connections. So we're going to go to the company site itself on LinkedIn here. Okay. Now, there's a bunch of different little tabs right here: home, about, posts, life about the company. We're going to go to the people section. These are the people who have listed they're currently working at Meta, right? I'm not talking Meta, but Microsoft. Now, from here, we could use a keyword search. Now, we could search from university. So if you want to find an alma mater, that could work there. You've got industry, skill sets, things like that you can search for. You can even look at who's you got your first connections go. Maybe you've got a friend that you work there, right? Otherwise, let's see if we can go find some folks. Again, we're going to look for folks that are doing what we're currently doing, whether you're a product manager, a TPM, a manager, whatever it is. We could do it as a keyword search right here, and we're going to find some people who are currently software engineers, right? So, now the only goal at this point in time is to make a genuine human connection. If you're trying to get a referral right off the bat, you're going to fall short every time, right? So try to make a genuine human connection to this. Now, as a recruiter, we spend, we're actually really good about sending LinkedIn messages. We've done a ton of research on how to get the best response rate back. Because again, this is our biggest tool that we use most of the time. And so this is how we actually connect with people. So keep things short, sweet, and simple. So we're going to connect with Aaron. We're going to send a nice little note to Aaron. Again, very simple. It's like, Aaron, I'm thinking about applying to Microsoft. But before I did so, I wanted to ask you, how have you enjoyed your time over there? Full stop. Send that message to 10 to 15 people. It's going to be a numbers game. Okay. But again, very simple question. You don't want to ask them like, what was your favorite project? No one's going to stop what they're doing and spend 20 minutes crafting you an email back. No, keep it very short, sweet, and simple, right? We're just looking to get two-way communication. We're looking to make a genuine human connection. All right. That's step one. So let's say Aaron responds back saying, I actually really enjoy my team. I'm working on a cool project. Perfect. At that point in time, that's our hook, right? Thank you so much. A response back, right? Thank you so much, Aaron. I really do appreciate that. I know this is a big ask, but would you mind referring me to this position, right? And send your resume in a PDF format. Don't send it Word, don't send it anything else. Use a PDF, not a photocopy PDF, one that could sparse information out of there for the ATS. But the reason, because a lot of us recruiters, we use Max, and if you send me a Word resume, it turns up in this pages things, it just jumbles it all up. And sometimes ATSs can get a little bit wonky when it comes to the formatting. Your best bet, PDF, can't go wrong with it. Okay. So, and by what I mean by actually sending the actual job link, there's a couple reasons why. Number one, you cannot apply to this position. So you need to keep track of the jobs you've applied to, because if you've applied to the same job that you're trying to get referred into, it will block it. Why am I going to pay a referral bonus for someone who's already in that job? Right? It's going to block it. So make sure you have not applied to that position. So keep track of that. Next thing you want to do is the other reason why you want to actually go and actually put the actual link in there. Imagine how many software engineering jobs are here at Microsoft. Okay, a ton of them. Have you ever asked your spouse, where do you want to eat for dinner? Well, we have this social anxiety when it comes to making choices, especially when it could impact somebody else. We panic. So if you ask somebody you just met who doesn't know you at all, it's like, could you refer me to a software engineering job? And they see 30, even if they see two or three, they're going to freeze and they're not going to follow through. So go and find the actual job rec itself. Well, this is a complicated website. Let's see, where are jobs at? No, 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 no. I'm sure it's on here somewhere. Let's see. There you go. Here's the software engineering jobs. Well, let's just look at just software engineering. Okay. Well, the website's always fun. Oh, you would think I'd be able to find that quicker. Let's see. Usually it's here at the bottom if download center. Okay. Well, at least you get the point of this. I don't spend all day kind of looking for, oh, careers. Found it. There we go. Knew I'd find it there somewhere. So again, we're going to try to find the actual jobs that we're looking for, software engineer. All right. So you don't want to send it from LinkedIn or another job site or anything like that because it may not tie directly to the applicant tracking system. There's a like if you look at this, there's a that's a lot of software engineering jobs, right? So you want to make sure you're finding the right one. So find the job itself, right? And then you could actually share the job, send a copy the link, or send the actual URL. This way, they're able to find that within the applicant tracking system and be able to apply the position from there. Okay. Now, let's say, for an example, again, you just met Aaron, right? And he's a little nervous about it. He says, "Well, I don't really know you. I don't feel comfortable referring you. Don't worry, I've got you covered too." Again, recruiters, we're salespeople here, right? So you would tell us like, Aaron, I totally understand your hesitancy. If it wasn't for your kind words about the company, then I would not have moved forward. If anybody deserves the referral bonus, it should be you. Just remind them of the payday. That'll get you the referral. This worked. So let me put it in perspective. So when I got laid off on Wednesday, I had a week and a half. I had three different company interviews in a week and a half, and I had a job offer at 5:03 p.m. that Friday. I was technically only unemployed for 3 minutes. This works. It is a lot of work. It is a lot of work. You're not going to get the same like this the same dopamine drip of actually getting that response back saying, yes, you're in the system, you're in there, right? This is going to take a little bit longer. There's going to be a little more finesse, but it's going to save you so much time waiting for you to actually someone to respond back to your resume. That's kind of how you do it. So use either one of those things there to kind of help you get noticed, right? Because I don't want you to be able to just put all this work into your resume and trying to get into these jobs without actually getting seen. I want you to get seen. And these are the things that you could do to help you get seen. Now, I've got a bunch of other tips and trips we could talk about on behavioral interviews that'll really make you stand out from that point. But the first stage first is you've got to make sure that you get seen, you get noticed, right? So work referrals, start connecting with people, start looking for folks who are alma mater, try to connect with people. You have to make a human connections. Again, it always comes back to it's all about who you know. but what are you doing to get to know people? It's tough to do. I know. I know. I was an introvert at one point in time, but it's tough. But this is part of it. This is part of actually getting ahead in your career there. Okay. Awesome. Great. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to answer a few questions I see here that came in through the chat. And then I'm going to pass this on over to Ellie, who's going to give a little bit of a demonstration on Jobright. Now, let me tell you, I'm not big on like software that comes to me as a recruiter. I get some of this stuff all the time. Let me tell you, this thing, top notch. It's really going to kind of show you a lot of really good things that kind of put you ahead. I've used it a couple of times, and I'm excited for you to check this out. But I see a couple of questions in here. Aaron, I see that you had a question. What are the target headlines meant to be for? Again, these are things that are going to help us find you. Again, keywords. Again, if I'm looking for a software engineer, I'm looking for a software engineer. So you want to make sure that you have that in there. For roles, if you have already applied to, what are some steps you could take to get noticed? There's nothing you can do for that specific job. You could try to reach out to the recruiter that's there. You could try to find out who the hiring manager is and try to get noticed that way. But depending on the company, that's going to be more difficult to do. If this is a small startup, reach out to the recruiter. They might be able to help with that. We could do that. Unfortunately, I'm not taking any like live questions right now with as many people as here. I'm just answering some here and there. But here in the next, like, I'm going to answer just a couple more. But then I've got to get some time for the rest of this. But we could definitely do some more of these sessions to help out. Let's see. Could you share a new grad resume template? Honestly, the template I shared is for a new grad as well. That's what I was saying. Highlight those projects, those highlights and projects. That's the things you're going to kind of highlight in your experience. So that would be something you could use there. Let's see. For roles, if you're, yeah, first for get noticed, yeah. Once you've already applied to the job, you're in that process. To get pulled out of this can be kind of difficult to do. Where do you incorporate industry specific keywords for projects experience for internships? Well, for internships, there's not much that you could do that for that. For internships, you're just trying to highlight the relevant experience that's for the company you're applying to. So if you're doing an internship at a fintech company, right? You want to make sure that the experience you're talking about doesn't talk about the like finance jargon. Leave that jargon out of that. So industry experience is going to be, what's relevant to the actual jobs that you're applying to. Our time for this is limited, so if you have any issue, okay, cool. So we're going to be moving on to that. Well, awesome. With that being said, I appreciate everybody joining my chat today. It was kind of high level on this, but I want to pass this on over to Ella, who's going to be going over Jobright. This is a fantastic software that's really going to help making sure that you're setting yourself up for success, especially when it comes to the resume and job matching there. So over to you.
Thank you, Chris. Hi guys, I'm Ella from Jobright AI. Thanks again, Chris, for sharing the valuable insights. Definitely really crucial advice for us. Just a note here that the recording will be shared onto our YouTube. Just search for Jobright AI. Yeah. And so, yeah, before we jump into the Q&A session, I just want to take some time quickly introduce you guys about Jobright's key features and resources in case you guys haven't tried, and talk really quick about how they can help revolutionize your job search experience. So the first feature I want to talk about is really about job matching. So Jobright actually aggregates over 200,000 company career sites in major job boards like LinkedIn, Indeed. So that will give you access to the largest job board available. But we do not actually stop at quantity. Our platform matches these jobs based on your background and skills, so that you can find the most qualified positions. And what's unique is that many of these roles aren't available on LinkedIn. So it means that you will face less competition and have a better shot at landing the jobs. And the second one I want to talk about is really the resume. We all know how crucial it is to have a resume that not only looks good, but also get past the ATS system. So Jobright actually offered two features around resume. So the first one is the base resume. It will diagnose your resume that you upload and make sure it's ATS friendly right here. You can see I have a C score here, but after improving it based on the report, you are able to pass your resume the keyword screening system. So at the same time, we also help you to tailor your resume to each job you apply for. So let me just click into some random jobs here. So click generate custom resume. So it will diagnose your resume based on the job description so that you're able to better align your resume to the application. And the final feature I want to talk about is really around like networking. I personally think networking is the key to securing a job, but it's not always easy to know where to start. So Jobright simplifies this process by connecting you directly with the best referral resources at each company, whether it's like a hiring manager, an alumni, or a former colleague. And you can just click here. Like with just one click, you can generate a personalized message to reach out. For example, like just view their LinkedIn and send out the message. Yeah, like that. So it will make your networking efforts like more effective and efficient. And lastly, really quick, I want to share some resources that tailored to you guys. So which are the intern job list and the new grad job list. I know a lot of you actually come from the intern list, and we are publishing the new grad list now. So it's right here. My colleague will share the link into the chat if you guys are interested. So it is specifically designed for those of you just entering the workforce, focusing exclusively on like the true entry-level positions that require 0 to 2 years of experience. This means that you will be looking at the opportunities that are genuinely suited to your current career stage. And that's all. Like with all the overview, I hope you're as excited about these features as we are. And I'd love to hear from you guys if you guys have any questions or feedback. So let's move on to the Q&A sessions where just feel free to drop any questions into chat and we're happy to answer it.
All right, so it looks like we've got a few more here. Let's see. What about those who have decided a gap in software engineering? Do I have to hide that on my resume, or can I explain in the roles I did? So that's kind of tough. I mean, gaps on resumes can be a little bit tough to actually go into. I actually interviewed somebody today who actually had a bit of a gap. So she was an IT support specialist, did some like worked at a distribution plant, then back into it. It's okay to actually show some of that. I wouldn't elaborate too much on the resume for the jobs that aren't relevant on there. Just keep it very short. But we want to see that you've been active, that you are actually working. Being in a structured environment like that makes companies feel a little bit more at ease when it comes to, when it comes to, bringing somebody on. Now, where things get a little bit more difficult is if you've been out of the workforce for quite some time. Maybe it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if you're going to school. That's a little bit separate. But let's say you've got a 2-year gap on your resume. That's a little bit tough because we're looking for relevant experience. So this is where highlighting some of that project stuff can kind of come into play and work in those referrals. Awesome. I've got enough time for about one more question here. Let's see. Let's see. I've noticed that in some cases, application for the 2025 summer STE internships at Google within referrals seems to be on progress more slowly. Is this something you've seen before, or is this something that could be done to speed up the process? Now, that's probably a little bit outside of my scope, is because each one of these companies have not only just like internship programs, but usually like new grad programs. These are anybody who can qualify for it, who's just recently grad to like 9 months, and they're not just internships. They could be an actual full-time job. Usually like referrals can still help with that because again you're still getting noticed, you're kind of going through that a little bit differently, but those referrals work a little bit different. As far as the specifics on that, those are actually very specific recruiters too. So if you actually go, remember how I did this search on there for the software engineers? Well, if you do a search for university recruiters, those are the folks you want to reach out to. They're more likely to respond back to you because they all do university recruiting. So they might be able to give you a little bit more insight when it comes to getting ready to some of those internships. Outside of that, I really can't help too much on that because it's not exactly my wheels haven't done that for there. Let's see. Will the slideshow with tips that you showed earlier be posted somewhere after this meeting? Yes, we're going to be sharing the actual recording of this, and it will actually be on YouTube as well, on the Jobright site. Any other questions here? If the company is a startup working in stealth mode, does that create bias? I'm trying to figure what you mean by stealth mode. So most startups, if not usually, not usually a bias on that. The thing is, when it comes to startups, it's pretty easy to kind of get noticed in some of those. If there's only a couple, recruiters that are there, the chances of you getting to the right person are pretty good. Most of the time, you want to reach out to other peers that are out there, but reaching out to the recruiter could definitely help with that. As far as stealth mode goes, if I mean, I imagine you're talking about if they're hiring without posting jobs, which we absolutely do sometimes, only because we're looking for something specific. That means we're going out on LinkedIn and we're actually trying to find something or trying to find the specific person for that. Unless you have like a good, someone who on the inside who might give you a little more insight to what's happening, but sometimes you just don't know. So it's good to still connect with the people that are at that company. So if a position does come available, you might be one of the first people they reach out to. It's about networking and getting ahead of some of that. Well, awesome. Hopefully, I get to a lot of those questions. We do have more of these sessions coming up. I do. There's a lot of folks in here today, but hopefully, you'll at least got some information out of this. And of course, we do have the recording there, so you're more than welcome to go back to that. And then, of course, the resume. So for the folks that go through this, make sure you connect with everybody here. Make sure everybody, again, this is a community, right? You want to connect with folks. Don't be afraid to send out those connections and making sure the folks that you're staying in contact with and building that network. It's going to come in so handy later on down the road. All right, everybody. Well, that's the time I've got for tonight. It was an absolute pleasure seeing everybody, and I look forward to seeing y'all in the future.